Before you continue, make sure to subscribe. My possessed daughter. A week ago, I was driving home, and my young daughter was in the car with me. I was in a hurry, so I decided to take a shortcut that led us down a lonely mountain road. All of a sudden, in the middle of nowhere, the engine started to splutter, and the car ground to a halt. When I took out my mobile phone, I realized that I had no signal. We were completely stranded. It was already growing dark. There was no gas station for miles, and the road was not used very often. It was clear that we would have to spend the night in the car and hope that some passing motorist would stop and give us a ride. The sun was going down, and it was beginning to get very cold. An eerie silence descended over the mountain, and all I could hear was the wind rustling through the trees. My daughter went to sleep in the passenger seat. I closed my eyes and was starting to drift off as well when I heard a strange noise. It sounded like a voice. I couldn't make out what it was saying. It sounded like gibberish. Tensumetsu, Tensumetsu, Tensumetsu. At first I thought I was dreaming, but as it got closer and closer, I opened my eyes and looked around. Tensumetsu, Tensumetsu, Tensumetsu. A dark figure was approaching the car. All I could see was a silhouette. It looked like a man, and he seemed to be dragging his foot. Tensumetsu, Tensumetsu, Tensumetsu. I looked down at my daughter. She was still asleep. I didn't want to wake her up. All of a sudden, the noise stopped. The eerie silence returned. Then I looked up and got the fright of my life. I had to stop myself from screaming out loud. Standing at the passenger window was the most hideous figure I have ever seen. It looked like a man, but his face was so twisted and contorted that it formed a frightening visage. He was horribly deformed. It was as if every piece of skin on his face had been peeled off, and all that was left was bloody red muscle and sinew. He had no nose. He had no ears. His piercing eyes stared at me through the glass. I turned the key in the ignition again and again and tried to start the car, but it was no use. The engine just chugged and died. Outside the window, the hideous man took out a knife. He began chanting over and over to himself. Tensumetsu, Tensumetsu, Tensumetsu. Each time he said it, he stabbed the window with the knife, hitting it harder and harder each time. I kept trying to start the car. Tears were streaming down my face. I was desperate to get out of there. Tensumetsu, Tensumetsu, Tensumetsu. Suddenly, there was a loud crash, and the passenger window shattered. Broken glass showered all over my daughter. I screamed hysterically. The man's arm came through the window, and he brandished the knife, lashing out at me. Tensumetsu, Tensumetsu, Tensumetsu. Just then, I turned the key one last time, and the engine sprang to life. I floored the accelerator, and the car tore out of there like a bat out of hell. I sped off down the narrow mountain road, leaving the hideous man far behind. Watch out for part 2, and please subscribe.